Have you ever felt like your efforts went unnoticed or that your value was overlooked? It's a universal experience, one that can leave even the most confident among us questioning our worth. But what if I told you that the Stoics, those ancient philosophers known for their unshakable resilience, had a powerful antidote to this very struggle? Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." In other words, your value isn't determined by the recognition you receive from others. It's rooted in something far deeper and unshakable. Today, we're diving into 24 Stoic strategies designed to help you feel valued, not because of external validation, but because of the quiet, unyielding confidence that comes from within. These aren't just abstract ideas, they're practical, actionable steps you can start applying today to reclaim your sense of worth, no matter how overlooked you might feel. So, let's explore how the wisdom of Stoicism can help you rise above the noise and find the unshakable value that's always been within you. Let's dive into the first Stoic strategy: focus on what you can control. At the heart of Stoicism lies a powerful principle called the dichotomy of control, the idea that some things are within our power while others are not. External validation, like praise or recognition, falls squarely into the latter category. It's not up to us whether others notice our efforts or appreciate our value. But here's the good news: how we perceive ourselves, the standards we hold, and the virtues we cultivate, those are entirely within our control. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, put it simply: some things are up to us and some things are not up to us. When we stop chasing approval from others and start focusing on the qualities we admire in ourselves, integrity, kindness, resilience, we begin to build an unshakable sense of worth that no one can take away. Take, for example, someone who spends years trying to impress their colleagues, only to feel invisible in the workplace. Instead of waiting for external validation, they shift their focus inward. They start measuring their success by their own standards: how hard they work, how they treat others, and whether they stay true to their values. Over time, this shift transforms their self-perception. They no longer feel overlooked because they've stopped relying on others to define their worth. So here's a question to reflect on: what aspects of your self-worth are entirely within your control? Is it your honesty, your work ethic, or the way you show up for the people you care about? When you start focusing on these, you'll find that external recognition becomes secondary because your value no longer depends on it. What does it mean to live virtuously? For the Stoics, virtue wasn't just a lofty ideal. It was the highest good, the foundation of a meaningful and fulfilling life. Living virtuously means aligning your actions with timeless principles like wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline. Seneca, the great Roman Stoic, once wrote, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future, to live as if each day were our last in a way that is in harmony with nature." In other words, when we act in accordance with our nature, when we embody these virtues, we tap into a deep, unshakable sense of self-worth that doesn't rely on external validation. Consider someone who volunteers at a local shelter, not for recognition or praise, but because it's the right thing to do. Every time they show up, they're practicing kindness and justice. Over time, these small, virtuous actions accumulate, creating a quiet but powerful affirmation of their own value. They don't need someone else to tell them they're making a difference. They know it because they're living in alignment with their principles. This is the essence of Stoic self-affirmation. Your worth isn't something others grant you. It's something you cultivate through the choices you make every day. So, how can you affirm your worth through virtuous behavior today? Maybe it's choosing honesty in a difficult conversation, or showing courage by standing up for what you believe in, even when it's uncomfortable. Perhaps it's practicing patience with someone who tests your limits, or demonstrating wisdom by making thoughtful decisions rather than impulsive ones. Each of these actions, no matter how small, is a step toward building a stronger sense of intrinsic value. And here's the beautiful part: the more you align your life with virtue, the less you'll need external validation to feel valued. You'll know your worth because it's reflected in the way you live. Let this be your challenge today. Choose one virtuous action to take, something that resonates with your deepest values. Notice how it feels to act in alignment with what you truly believe in. That feeling, that quiet, unshakable confidence, is your worth asserting itself, not because someone else noticed, but because you chose to live virtuously. Your worth is not determined by others' opinions. Let that sink in for a moment. It's easy to fall into the trap of seeking approval or fearing criticism, but the Stoics remind us that external judgments are fleeting and ultimately out of our control. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, once wrote, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." This simple yet profound observation highlights a truth we often ignore. The opinions of others, whether praise or blame, are irrelevant to our true value. What matters is how we see ourselves, how we live, and the principles we uphold. The Stoics practiced something called cognitive detachment, a mindset where you observe external opinions without letting them define you. Think of it like this: if someone hands you a gift and you refuse to take it, the gift remains theirs. In the same way, when someone offers an opinion, positive or negative, you don't have to accept it as your own. It's not about ignoring feedback or becoming indifferent to others. It's about recognizing that their judgments don't hold the power to shape your self-worth. Take the story of Cato the Younger, a Stoic who lived during the turbulent days of the Roman Republic. Cato was known for his unyielding integrity, even when it made him unpopular. He opposed Julius Caesar's rise to power not for personal gain, but because he believed in the principles of justice and liberty. Despite facing ridicule, threats, and betrayal, Cato remained steadfast. He didn't seek the approval of the masses or fear their disapproval. His sense of worth came from living in alignment with his values, not from the opinions of others. Cato's example shows us that true strength lies in detachment, not from the world, but from the need for its validation. So, here's a question to reflect on. How often do you let others' opinions dictate your self-worth? Do you find yourself obsessing over what someone said about you, or waiting for their approval to feel good about yourself? If so, it's time to reclaim your power. Start by reminding yourself that opinions are just that, opinions. They're not facts and they don't define you. The next time you catch yourself worrying about what others think, pause and ask yourself, does this align with my values? Does this reflect who I truly am? If the answer is no, let it go. Your worth is not up for debate. It's inherent, unshakable, and entirely your own. This doesn't mean you should dismiss all feedback or live in isolation. Constructive criticism can help you grow, but it's essential to filter it through your own values and self-awareness. The key is to hold your self-worth separate from the noise of external opinions. When you do this, you'll find a quiet confidence that no amount of praise or blame can shake. And that, more than anything, is the foundation of a life lived with purpose and dignity. What do you discover about yourself in moments of solitude? It's a question worth pondering, especially in a world that often equates busyness with importance. The Stoics, however, saw solitude as a gift, a space to reconnect with your inner self, free from the noise and distractions of external expectations. Seneca, one of the most eloquent voices of Stoicism, once said, "Be wary of the crowd. It's in solitude that you'll find yourself." This isn't about isolation or withdrawal from the world. It's about carving out time to reflect, to listen to your thoughts, and to strengthen your connection to what truly matters. Imagine someone who feels constantly overlooked at work, their efforts seemingly invisible to those around them. Instead of seeking validation through endless striving, they decide to step back. They start spending a few quiet moments each morning in solitude, reflecting on their values, their goals, and the person they aspire to be. Over time, this practice becomes a wellspring of clarity and strength. They begin to see their worth not through the lens of others' opinions, but through the quiet confidence that comes from knowing themselves deeply. Solitude, in this sense, becomes a sanctuary, a place to reaffirm their intrinsic value, independent of external recognition. The Stoics believed that solitude was essential for self-awareness. It's in these moments of stillness that we can examine our thoughts, question our assumptions, and align our actions with our principles. Think of it as a mental decluttering, a chance to strip away the distractions and focus on what truly defines you. When you spend time alone with your thoughts, you begin to see patterns, strengths, and areas for growth that might otherwise go unnoticed. This self-awareness is the foundation of inner strength, a quiet resilience that helps you navigate life's challenges with grace and purpose. So, how can you use solitude to deepen your sense of self-worth? Start small. Set aside just 10 minutes a day to sit quietly, free from distractions. Reflect on your values, your actions, and the kind of person you want to become. Ask yourself, what qualities do I admire most in myself? How can I live in alignment with those qualities today? Over time, these moments of solitude will become a powerful tool for self-affirmation, reminding you that your worth isn't something others grant you. It's something you cultivate from within. Embrace solitude not as an escape, but as an opportunity to reconnect with your true self. In those quiet moments, you'll find the clarity and strength to stand firm in your value, no matter how overlooked you might feel in the world outside. Gratitude shifts your focus from lack to abundance. It's a powerful lens through which we can see the value already present in our lives, even when we feel overlooked or underappreciated. The Stoics understood this deeply. Epictetus, one of the most influential Stoic teachers, urged his students to appreciate what is within their control, saying, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." In other words, gratitude isn't just a feel-good emotion. It's a practice that helps us recognize our inherent worth, independent of external circumstances. Let's bring this to life with a modern example. Imagine someone who feels undervalued in their job, constantly overlooked for promotions or recognition. Instead of dwelling on what's missing, they decide to start a daily gratitude practice. Each evening, they jot down 3 things they're grateful for: small victories, meaningful connections, or even personal qualities they admire in themselves. Over time, this simple habit shifts their perspective. They begin to see their value not in terms of what others do or don't notice, but in the richness of their own experiences and contributions. Gratitude, in this case, becomes a tool for self-affirmation, helping them feel grounded and valued even when external validation is scarce. So, what about you? What are 3 things you're grateful for that affirm your worth? It could be something as simple as your ability to listen deeply, your resilience in the face of challenges, or the relationships that bring meaning to your life. The act of naming these things, of acknowledging their presence, helps you reconnect with your intrinsic value. Gratitude, after all, isn't about ignoring the difficulties or pretending everything is perfect. It's about finding the good that exists alongside the challenges and letting that good remind you of your worth. The Stoics didn't just preach gratitude, they practiced it as a way of life. They understood that by focusing on what we have rather than what we lack, we cultivate a sense of abundance that no external circumstance can take away. This isn't about settling for less or ignoring ambition. It's about grounding ourselves in the present moment and recognizing the value that's already here. When we practice gratitude, we're not waiting for someone else to tell us we matter. We're affirming it for ourselves day by day, moment by moment. Let this be your invitation. Take a few minutes today to reflect on what you're grateful for. Write it down, say it out loud, or simply hold it in your heart. Notice how it feels to acknowledge the good in your life, no matter how small or ordinary it may seem. That feeling, that quiet sense of abundance, is a reminder that your value isn't something you need to earn or prove. It's already here, waiting for you to see it. And when you do, you'll find that gratitude isn't just a practice, it's a path to unshakable self-worth. What if rejection is a gift in disguise? It's a question that might feel counterintuitive, especially when the sting of being overlooked or dismissed is still fresh. But the Stoics saw rejection not as a failure, but as an opportunity, a chance to grow stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, put it this way: the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. In other words, rejection isn't a roadblock, it's a stepping stone. It's a moment to pause, reflect, and ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I use this experience to become better? Consider the story of a young entrepreneur whose first business venture failed spectacularly. Instead of letting rejection define them, they chose to see it as a teacher. They analyzed what went wrong, identified areas for improvement, and used that knowledge to build a stronger, more successful company the second time around. This isn't just about bouncing back, it's about using rejection as a catalyst for growth. The Stoics called this amor fati, or the love of fate. It's the practice of embracing everything that happens to us, even the hard things, because every experience has the potential to shape us into stronger, more capable versions of ourselves. So, how can you reframe your next rejection as a chance to grow? Start by shifting your perspective. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" ask, "What can I learn from this?" Perhaps it's an opportunity to develop patience, to refine your skills, or to reassess your goals. Maybe it's a chance to practice resilience, to prove to yourself that you can rise above disappointment. Rejection, when viewed through this lens, becomes less about what you've lost and more about what you stand to gain. Think of rejection as a mirror. It doesn't define you, but it can reveal your strengths and weaknesses. It shows you where you need to grow, where you need to adapt, and where you might need to let go of unrealistic expectations. The Stoics believed that every obstacle, every setback carries within it the seeds of opportunity. Your task is to find those seeds, nurture them, and watch them grow into something stronger than before. The next time you face rejection, remember, it's not the end of the road. It's an invitation to take a different path, one that might lead you to places you never imagined. Embrace it, learn from it, and let it fuel your journey forward. After all, the greatest growth often comes from the moments we least expect. True value lies in what you contribute, not in who notices. This is a principle the Stoics held dear, emphasizing that the essence of a meaningful life isn't found in accolades or applause, but in the quiet, steady work of serving others and making a difference. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, captured this beautifully when he said, "Wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for kindness." For the Stoics, the joy of giving wasn't tied to recognition or reward. It was about the act itself, the simple satisfaction of knowing you've added something positive to the world. Let's bring this to life with a story. Imagine a teacher who spends years in a small, underfunded school, pouring her heart into her students. She doesn't receive awards or public praise, but she doesn't need it. Her fulfillment comes from seeing her students grow, from knowing she's played a part in shaping their futures. Over time, she realizes that her impact isn't measured by the spotlight, but by the lives she touches. This is the Stoic approach to contribution. It's not about being seen or celebrated. It's about the quiet, enduring power of service. So, how can you shift your focus from recognition to contribution? Start by asking yourself, what can I give rather than what can I gain? It might be as simple as lending a listening ear to a friend in need, or as grand as dedicating your career to a cause you believe in. The key is to act without expecting anything in return. When you do this, you'll find a deeper, more lasting sense of fulfillment, one that doesn't depend on external validation. Think about it this way: every act of kindness, every effort to help, every moment of support you offer is a testament to your worth. It's a reminder that your value isn't tied to how much attention you receive, but to the positive impact you create. And here's the beautiful part: the more you focus on contributing, the less you'll worry about being overlooked. Why? Because your sense of worth will come from within, from the knowledge that you're making a difference, no matter how small or unseen. Take a moment to reflect. What's one way you can contribute today? It doesn't have to be grand or dramatic. It could be as simple as offering a kind word, sharing your time, or using your skills to help someone in need. When you shift your focus from recognition to contribution, you'll discover a profound truth. Your value isn't determined by who notices you, but by the good you bring into the world. And that, more than anything, is a source of unshakable self-worth. What if you lost everything you take for granted? It's a jarring question, isn't it? But for the Stoics, this kind of thinking wasn't about fear or pessimism. It was a powerful tool for cultivating gratitude and resilience. They called it negative visualization, a practice where you intentionally imagine losing the things you cherish most: your health, your relationships, your career, even your sense of security. The goal isn't to dwell on despair, but to deepen your appreciation for what you have while it's still here. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, put it this way: it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. By mentally preparing for loss, you train yourself to face challenges with calm clarity, and you learn to value the present moment in a way that's often overlooked. Let's bring this to life with a story. Imagine someone who's always been focused on climbing the corporate ladder, pouring endless hours into their work. One day, they're suddenly laid off. At first, the loss feels devastating, like their identity has been stripped away. But as they sit with the shock, they begin to notice something unexpected. For the first time in years, they're spending quality time with their family, reconnecting with old hobbies, and rediscovering passions they'd long neglected. What initially felt like a setback becomes a wake-up call, reminding them of what truly matters. This is the essence of negative visualization. It doesn't take a crisis to appreciate what you have. You can cultivate that perspective now simply by imagining what life would be like without it. So, how does this practice help you feel valued even when overlooked? By shifting your focus from what's missing to what's already here. When you take a moment to imagine losing your job, your health, or your relationships, you're not just preparing for hardship, you're reminding yourself of the inherent value those things hold. And in doing so, you start to see your worth not in terms of external validation, but in the richness of your life as it is. The Stoics believed that this kind of reflection could free you from the constant craving for more, helping you find contentment in the present. Think about it. What would you value more if you imagined losing it? Is it the stability of a roof over your head, the warmth of a loved one's smile, or the freedom to pursue your passions? Negative visualization doesn't just make you grateful for these things, it makes you fiercely protective of them. It reminds you that your worth isn't tied to achievements or recognition, but to the relationships, experiences, and joys that make life meaningful. And when you anchor yourself in that truth, the opinions of others lose their power to define you. You stop needing their validation because you've already found something far more enduring. A deep, unshakable appreciation for the life you've built. Take a moment today to try this practice. Picture what it would feel like to lose something you cherish. Notice how it changes your perspective, how it sharpens your focus on what truly matters. That shift, that profound sense of gratitude, is your worth asserting itself, not because of what you've achieved, but because of what you already hold dear. And that, more than anything, is the foundation of a life lived with purpose and peace. Resilience is the foundation of self-worth. It's not just the ability to bounce back from setbacks, it's the quiet strength that allows you to stand firm, even when life feels like it's pulling the ground out from under you. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." For the Stoics, resilience wasn't about avoiding hardship. It was about embracing it as an opportunity to grow stronger, wiser, and more grounded in your sense of self. It's through adversity that we discover what we're truly made of. Take the story of Epictetus, one of the most influential Stoic philosophers. Born into slavery, Epictetus faced unimaginable challenges from the very beginning of his life. Yet, instead of allowing his circumstances to define him, he used them as fuel to cultivate an unshakable inner resilience. He taught that while we can't control what happens to us, we can always control how we respond. This mindset transformed his suffering into a source of strength, and his teachings continue to inspire millions today. Epictetus's life is a testament to the power of resilience, not as a shield against hardship, but as a tool to navigate it with dignity and purpose. So, how can you strengthen your resilience in the face of challenges? Start by reframing how you see adversity. Instead of viewing obstacles as roadblocks, see them as opportunities to practice patience, courage, and perseverance. When you encounter a setback, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can this experience make me stronger? These questions shift your focus from what's happening to you to what's happening within you. And that's where true resilience begins, not in avoiding the storm, but in learning how to stand steady within it. Another key to building resilience is cultivating a mindset of acceptance. The Stoics called this amor fati, or the love of fate. It's the practice of embracing everything life throws at you, the good, the bad, and the ugly, as part of your journey. When you stop resisting what you can't change and start focusing on what you can control, your thoughts, your actions, your attitude, you'll find a deeper sense of inner strength. Resilience isn't about denying pain or pretending everything is fine. It's about facing reality head-on and choosing to move forward one step at a time. Think about a time when you faced a challenge that seemed insurmountable. Maybe it was a personal loss, a professional setback, or a moment of self-doubt. What got you through it? Chances are it wasn't just luck or external support, it was your own inner resilience. That strength is always within you, waiting to be tapped into. The more you practice embracing challenges, the more you'll trust in your ability to overcome them. And with each victory, no matter how small, your sense of self-worth grows stronger. Resilience isn't something you're born with, it's something you build day by day through the choices you make. Whether it's choosing to keep going when the path gets tough, or finding meaning in the midst of struggle, every act of resilience is a step toward a deeper, more unshakable sense of self-worth. So the next time life tests you, remember, you have the power to endure, to grow, and to emerge stronger than before. And that, more than anything, is the true measure of your value. Why compare yourself to others when you are unique? It's a question worth asking, especially in a world that often encourages us to measure our worth against the accomplishments, appearances, or possessions of others. The Stoics, however, saw comparison as a trap, a source of endless discontent that pulls us away from our true selves. Seneca, the wise Stoic philosopher, put it bluntly, "You are not in competition with anyone else." Compare yourself to yourself and see how far you've come. In other words, the only person you should be comparing yourself to is the person you were yesterday. Anything else is a distraction from your own journey. Imagine a young artist who spends hours scrolling through social media, admiring the work of others and feeling increasingly inadequate. No matter how much they create, it never feels like enough because someone else always seems to be doing better. But then something shifts. They stumble upon Seneca's words and decide to take them to heart. Instead of comparing their work to others, they start focusing on their own growth. They celebrate small victories, a new technique mastered, a personal project completed, a moment of creative breakthrough. Over time, this shift transforms their relationship with their craft. They no longer feel overshadowed by others because they've stopped looking sideways and started looking inward. This is the power of letting go of comparison. It frees you to embrace your unique path without the weight of someone else's expectations. So, how can you break free from the comparison trap? Start by asking yourself, what does success look like for me? Not for the person next to you, not for the influencers you follow online, but for you. What are your values, your goals, your dreams? When you define success on your own terms, comparison loses its grip. You'll find that your worth isn't tied to how you measure up to others. It's tied to how authentically you live your own life. Think about it this way: every time you compare yourself to someone else, you're borrowing their story instead of writing your own. The Stoics believed that true contentment comes from focusing on what's within your control, your actions, your choices, your growth, rather than wasting energy on what's beyond it. When you let go of comparison, you reclaim your energy and redirect it toward what truly matters, becoming the best version of yourself. Here's a challenge for you. The next time you catch yourself comparing, pause and ask, what can I learn from this person without letting it diminish my own worth? Maybe it's inspiration, a new perspective, or simply a reminder to stay focused on your path. Comparison doesn't have to be a source of insecurity. It can be a mirror that reflects your own potential. The key is to use it as a tool for growth, not as a yardstick for self-judgment. Your journey is uniquely yours, and no one else can walk it for you. When you stop looking sideways and start looking forward, you'll find a sense of peace and purpose that no amount of comparison can take away. So, take a deep breath, let go of the need to measure up, and step confidently into the life that's waiting for you, one that's shaped not by others' achievements but by your own. The present moment is where your worth resides, not in the achievements of the past, not in the hopes of the future, but right here, right now. The Stoics understood this deeply, teaching that true value isn't something we need to chase or prove. It's already within us, waiting to be acknowledged in the present. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, put it simply: wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. In other words, when we stop yearning for what we don't have and start appreciating what's right in front of us, we tap into a profound sense of self-worth that no external circumstance can shake. Let's bring this to life with a story. Imagine someone who's spent years striving for a promotion, convinced that it will finally make them feel valued. When the promotion doesn't come, they're left feeling defeated and overlooked. But then something shifts. They start practicing mindfulness, a Stoic-inspired habit of focusing on the present moment. Instead of dwelling on what they lack, they begin to notice the small, meaningful moments that make up their day. The satisfaction of a job well done, the warmth of a colleague's smile, the quiet joy of a morning coffee. Over time, this shift transforms their perspective. They no longer feel overlooked because they've stopped tying their worth to future achievements. Instead, they've found it in the richness of the here and now. So, how can you anchor your sense of worth in the present moment? Start by practicing mindfulness, not as a complex meditation technique, but as a simple awareness of where you are and what you're doing. When you're at work, fully engage in the task at hand. When you're with loved ones, give them your undivided attention. When you're alone, take a moment to reflect on the qualities that make you uniquely you. The Stoics believed that the present moment is the only time we truly have control over. The past is gone, the future is uncertain, but the here and now. That's where your power lies. Think about it. What's one thing you can appreciate about this moment? Maybe it's the sound of birds outside your window, the feel of your feet on the ground, or the quiet satisfaction of knowing you've done your best today. When you start to notice these small, ordinary details, you'll find that your worth isn't something you need to earn or prove. It's already here, woven into the fabric of your daily life. And the more you focus on the present, the less you'll feel the need to seek validation from the outside world. This isn't about ignoring your goals or dismissing your ambitions. It's about recognizing that your value doesn't depend on achieving them. You are enough just as you are in this moment. The Stoics called this ataraxia, a state of inner peace that comes from accepting the present without judgment or resistance. It's a practice, a mindset, and ultimately a way of life. When you anchor your worth in the present, you free yourself from the endless cycle of striving and comparing. You realize that your value isn't tied to what you've done or where you're going. It's rooted in who you are, right here, right now. Take a moment today to pause and notice the present. What do you see, hear, feel? What's one thing you can appreciate about this moment? When you do, you'll find that your worth isn't something you need to search for. It's already here, waiting for you to see it. And in that realization, you'll discover a quiet, unshakable confidence that no amount of external validation can match. What if imperfection is part of being human? It's a question that might feel uncomfortable at first, especially in a world that often pushes us to strive for flawlessness. But the Stoics had a different perspective. They believed that imperfection isn't something to fear or hide. It's a natural, inevitable part of being human. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, once wrote, "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all your heart." In other words, life is messy, unpredictable, and imperfect, and that's okay. In fact, it's more than okay. It's a reminder that our worth isn't tied to being perfect. It's tied to being authentically, unapologetically ourselves. Take the story of a musician who struggled for years with stage fright. Every time they performed, they were haunted by the fear of making mistakes, of not being good enough. But then something shifted. They began to see their imperfections not as failures, but as part of what made their art unique. Instead of trying to hide their nerves, they leaned into them, using their vulnerability to connect more deeply with their audience. Over time, this acceptance transformed their relationship with their craft. They no longer felt the need to be flawless because they realized their imperfections were what made their performances real, raw, and deeply human. This is the power of accepting imperfection. It frees you to show up as you are, not as you think you should be. So, how can you embrace your imperfections as part of your value? Start by reframing how you see them. Instead of viewing flaws as weaknesses, see them as opportunities for growth, connection, and authenticity. Maybe it's your tendency to overthink that makes you a great problem solver, or your sensitivity that allows you to empathize deeply with others. These so-called imperfections aren't obstacles, they're part of what makes you uniquely you. The Stoics taught that true strength comes from accepting reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. When we stop fighting against our imperfections and start embracing them, we open the door to a deeper, more unshakable sense of self-worth. It's not about ignoring areas where you can improve. It's about recognizing that your value doesn't depend on being flawless. In fact, it's often our imperfections that make us relatable, that allow us to connect with others on a deeper level. Think about it. What's one imperfection you've been trying to hide or fix? What if, instead of seeing it as a flaw, you saw it as a part of your story, something that adds depth and character to who you are? When you start to embrace your imperfections, you'll find that they don't diminish your worth, they enhance it. They remind you that you're human, and that's not something to be ashamed of. It's something to celebrate. Today, take a moment to reflect on your imperfections. How can you see them not as weaknesses but as strengths? How can they help you connect more deeply with others or grow in ways you never imagined? When you stop striving for perfection and start embracing the messy, beautiful reality of who you are, you'll find a sense of worth that no amount of flawlessness could ever match. Because in the end, it's not about being perfect, it's about being real. And that, more than anything, is where true value lies. Discomfort can reveal your inner strength. It's a simple truth, but one that often feels counterintuitive in a world that prioritizes comfort and convenience. Yet, the Stoics believed that intentionally embracing discomfort wasn't just a test of endurance. It was a way to cultivate resilience, gratitude, and a deeper understanding of your own capabilities. Seneca, the great Stoic philosopher, once wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." In other words, just as physical exercise builds muscle, voluntary discomfort builds mental and emotional strength. It's not about seeking hardship for its own sake, but about using it as a tool to uncover the untapped potential within you. Consider the story of a young athlete who struggled with self-doubt. Despite her talent, she often felt overshadowed by her teammates and doubted her place on the team. One day, her coach challenged her to train in uncomfortable conditions, early mornings in the cold, long runs in the rain, and grueling drills when she was already exhausted. At first, she resisted, questioning why she would willingly put herself through such discomfort. But as she persisted, something remarkable happened. She began to notice a shift within herself. The discomfort no longer felt like a punishment, it felt like a teacher. It showed her that she was stronger than she thought, more capable than she believed, and that her worth wasn't tied to external validation. By embracing discomfort, she discovered a quiet confidence that no amount of praise could have given her. So, how can you use voluntary discomfort to strengthen your sense of worth? Start small. Maybe it's waking up an hour earlier to focus on a personal project, even when you'd rather stay in bed. Maybe it's having a difficult conversation you've been avoiding, or choosing to walk to work instead of driving. These small acts of discomfort might seem insignificant, but they're powerful reminders of your ability to persevere. Each time you choose to step outside your comfort zone, you're sending a message to yourself: I am capable. I am resilient, I am enough. The Stoics didn't just preach this idea, they lived it. They believed that by occasionally denying themselves the comforts they took for granted, they could build a deeper appreciation for what they had and a stronger sense of self-reliance. Think of it like this: when you intentionally face discomfort, you're training your mind to handle life's inevitable challenges with grace and courage. You're proving to yourself that you don't need everything to be easy or perfect to feel valuable. Your worth isn't tied to convenience, it's tied to your ability to rise above it. So here's a challenge for you. What small discomfort can you embrace today to strengthen your sense of worth? It doesn't have to be dramatic or life-altering. It could be as simple as turning off your phone for an hour to focus on a meaningful task, or skipping dessert to practice self-discipline. Whatever it is, use it as an opportunity to remind yourself of your inner strength. Because when you willingly face discomfort, you're not just building resilience, you're affirming your value, one small, courageous step at a time. What does success mean to you? For many of us, the answer to that question is shaped by external markers, things like job titles, income, or social recognition. But the Stoics challenged this way of thinking, urging us to define success not by the world's standards but by our own. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, put it this way: first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. In other words, success isn't about meeting someone else's expectations. It's about living in alignment with your deepest values and principles. When you stop chasing external validation and start defining success on your own terms, you reclaim a sense of worth that no one can take away. Take, for example, the story of a teacher who left a high-paying corporate job to work in a rural school. By society's standards, her decision might have seemed like a step backward, but for her, success wasn't about climbing the corporate ladder or earning a bigger paycheck. It was about making a difference, about using her skills to uplift others and live in alignment with her values. Over time, this shift transformed her sense of self-worth. She no longer felt the need to prove herself to anyone because her definition of success was rooted in something far more enduring: the quiet satisfaction of knowing she was living a life true to herself. So, how can you align your definition of success with your values? Start by asking yourself, what truly matters to me? Is it creativity, connection, or contribution? Is it integrity, kindness, or growth? Once you've identified your core values, use them as a compass to guide your decisions and actions. When you measure success by how well you're living these values rather than by external achievements, you'll find a deeper, more lasting sense of fulfillment. Success, in this sense, becomes less about what you accomplish and more about who you become. The Stoics believed that true success is an inside job. It's not about the accolades you collect or the possessions you accumulate. It's about the principles you uphold and the character you cultivate. This doesn't mean you should abandon your goals or stop striving for excellence. It simply means redefining what excellence looks like for you. Maybe it's being a reliable friend, a dedicated parent, or someone who consistently shows up with integrity, even when no one is watching. When you define success by these internal standards, you'll find that your worth isn't tied to what others think of you. It's tied to how authentically you live your life. Here's a challenge for you. Take a moment to reflect on your own definition of success. Is it aligned with your values, or is it shaped by external expectations? If it's the latter, how can you begin to shift your focus inward? Remember, your worth isn't determined by how you measure up to others. It's determined by how well you live in alignment with your own principles. And when you do that, you'll find a sense of success that's not only deeply satisfying but also unshakable. Because in the end, true success isn't about being the best in the world. It's about being the best for the world in your own unique way. The journey is where the value lies. It's a simple truth, but one that's easy to overlook in a world that often prioritizes results over effort. The Stoics, however, had a different perspective. They believed that true fulfillment comes not from the outcome, but from the process, the daily commitment to doing your best regardless of the results. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, captured this beautifully when he said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good person should be one." In other words, your worth isn't tied to what you achieve, but to the effort you put in and the principles you uphold along the way. Take the story of a writer who spent years working on a novel, pouring her heart into every page. When she finally finished, the book received little attention, no awards, no bestseller status, not even much recognition from her peers. At first, she felt defeated, as if all her hard work had been for nothing. But then, something shifted. She began to reflect on the journey itself. The late nights spent crafting sentences, the joy of creating characters that felt real, the quiet satisfaction of seeing her story come to life. Over time, she realized that the value of her work wasn't in the outcome, but in the process. She had grown as a writer, deepened her craft, and stayed true to her passion, regardless of the results. This is the Stoic approach to effort. It's not about the destination, but about who you become along the way. So, how can you shift your focus from outcomes to the effort you put in? Start by asking yourself, what can I control in this moment? Whether it's a project at work, a personal goal, or a relationship, the outcome is often uncertain. but the effort you put in, the dedication, the integrity, the persistence that's entirely within your power. Instead of fixating on the end result, focus on the small, daily actions that move you forward. Celebrate the progress, not just the finish line. When you do this, you'll find a deeper sense of fulfillment, one that doesn't depend on external validation or success. Think about it this way: every time you show up and give your best, you're affirming your worth. It's not about winning or losing. It's about the commitment to the process, the willingness to keep going even when the results are uncertain. The Stoics called this prohesis, the act of choosing to act in alignment with your values regardless of the outcome. When you focus on the process, you free yourself from the pressure of perfection and the fear of failure. You realize that your value isn't tied to what you achieve, but to how you show up day after day. Here's a challenge for you: the next time you set a goal, shift your focus from the outcome to the effort. Ask yourself, what can I do today to move closer to this goal, even if the results are uncertain? Maybe it's putting in an extra hour of work, practicing a new skill, or simply showing up with a positive attitude. When you focus on the process, you'll find that the journey itself becomes a source of meaning and fulfillment. And in that shift, you'll discover a quiet, unshakable confidence, one that's rooted not in what you achieve, but in the effort you put in and the person you become along the way. How often do you show yourself the same compassion you offer others? It's a question worth asking, especially when we consider how quick we can be to extend kindness to others, but often hold ourselves to impossibly high standards. The Stoics, known for their emphasis on self-discipline, also understood the importance of self-compassion. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "Be kind to yourself, for you are your own longest commitment." This balance between discipline and compassion is key to cultivating a sense of worth that isn't tied to external validation or perfection. It's about treating yourself with the same understanding and patience you'd offer a close friend. Consider the story of someone who spent years striving for perfection in their career, constantly pushing themselves to meet unrealistic expectations. Every mistake felt like a failure, and every setback left them questioning their value. But then something changed. They began to practice self-compassion, reminding themselves that mistakes are part of growth, not proof of inadequacy. Over time, this shift transformed their relationship with themselves. They no longer felt the need to be flawless because they realized their worth wasn't tied to perfection. It was tied to their humanity, their effort, and their willingness to learn. This is the power of self-compassion. It frees you from the relentless pursuit of approval and helps you see your value in a more forgiving light. So, what does it mean to practice self-compassion in a Stoic way? It's not about letting yourself off the hook or avoiding responsibility. It's about recognizing that you're human, that you'll make mistakes, face challenges, and sometimes fall short of your own expectations. And that's okay. The Stoics believed that true strength comes from facing reality with clarity and courage, and that includes accepting your imperfections. When you treat yourself with kindness, you're not being weak, you're being honest, you're acknowledging your humanity and giving yourself the space to grow. Think about it. How do you talk to yourself when things don't go as planned? Are you quick to criticize, or do you offer yourself the same encouragement you'd give to someone you care about? The way you treat yourself in those moments matters. It shapes your sense of worth, your resilience, and your ability to move forward. Self-compassion isn't about ignoring your flaws. It's about seeing them clearly and choosing to respond with understanding rather than judgment. Here's a simple way to start. The next time you make a mistake, pause and ask yourself, what would I say to a friend in this situation? Then say those words to yourself. It might feel awkward at first, but over time it will become a habit, a way of affirming your worth, not despite your imperfections, but because of them. Because when you treat yourself with compassion, you're not just being kind, you're building a stronger, more resilient sense of self. So, how can you practice more compassion toward yourself today? Maybe it's letting go of a harsh self-criticism or taking a moment to acknowledge your efforts, even if the results weren't perfect. Perhaps it's simply reminding yourself that you're doing the best you can with what you have. Whatever it is, make it a priority, because your worth isn't something you need to earn. It's something you deserve simply because you're here trying and growing. And that, more than anything, is worth celebrating. Every challenge is a chance to prove your worth. It's a bold statement, but one the Stoics lived by. They believed that obstacles weren't just barriers to overcome. They were opportunities to grow, to learn, and to show the world and yourself what you're truly made of. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who faced immense adversity in his own life, put it this way: the greater the difficulty, the more glory in surmounting it. In other words, the trials we face aren't just tests of our strength. They're invitations to rise higher, to become stronger, and to discover the depth of our own resilience. Consider the story of Thomas Edison, who famously failed thousands of times before inventing the light bulb. When asked about his repeated failures, he said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." What if he had seen those failures as dead ends rather than stepping stones? What if he had let the challenges define him instead of using them to fuel his determination? Edison's story is a powerful reminder that obstacles aren't just setbacks, they're opportunities to innovate, to adapt, and to prove to yourself that you're capable of more than you ever imagined. So, how can you begin to see your own challenges as opportunities? Start by asking yourself, what can I learn from this? How can this experience make me stronger, wiser, or more resilient? Maybe it's a difficult project at work that's pushing you to develop new skills, or a personal struggle that's teaching you patience and perseverance. Every challenge, no matter how daunting, carries within it the seeds of growth. The question is, will you let those seeds take root? The Stoics called this mindset amor fati, the love of fate. It's the practice of embracing everything life throws at you, the good and the bad, as part of your journey. When you stop resisting challenges and start seeing them as opportunities, something remarkable happens. You stop feeling like a victim of circumstance and start feeling like an active participant in your own life. You realize that your worth isn't tied to avoiding hardship. It's tied to how you respond to it, and that's where true growth begins. Think about it. What's one challenge you're facing right now? How can you reframe it as an opportunity to grow? Maybe it's a chance to practice patience, to develop a new skill, or to prove to yourself that you're stronger than you think. The next time you encounter an obstacle, don't just see it as something to endure, see it as something to embrace. Because every challenge is a chance to prove your worth, not to the world, but to yourself. And when you rise to meet it, you'll find a quiet confidence that no amount of external validation can match. What would it feel like to be at peace with yourself, to wake up each morning not burdened by the weight of expectations or the noise of external judgments, but grounded in a quiet, unshakable calm? This is the essence of the Stoic pursuit of inner tranquility, a state of being where your worth isn't tied to what others think or what you achieve, but to the peace you've cultivated within. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." For the Stoics, inner peace wasn't just a lofty ideal. It was a practical, attainable goal, one that could transform how you see yourself and your place in the world. Take the story of a young professional who felt constantly overwhelmed by the demands of their career. They were always chasing the next promotion, the next milestone, believing that each achievement would finally bring them the peace they craved. But no matter how much they accomplished, the sense of fulfillment always seemed just out of reach. Then they discovered Stoicism. they began practicing daily meditation, reflecting on their values, and letting go of the need for external validation. Over time, something remarkable happened. They started to feel a deep sense of calm, even in the midst of chaos. They realized that their worth wasn't tied to their job title or their accomplishments. It was rooted in the inner peace they'd cultivated. This shift didn't just change their career, it transformed their entire sense of self. So, how can you begin to cultivate inner peace in your own life? Start by creating space for stillness. Whether it's a few minutes of meditation each morning, a quiet walk in nature, or simply sitting in silence with your thoughts, these moments of stillness are where inner peace begins to take root. The Stoics believed that by turning inward, we can find a reservoir of calm that no external circumstance can disturb. It's not about escaping the world, it's about finding a quiet center within yourself, a place where you can return no matter what's happening around you. Think about it. What's one small step you can take today to nurture your inner peace? Maybe it's setting aside your phone for an hour to focus on something meaningful, or journaling about the values that matter most to you. Perhaps it's simply taking a deep breath and reminding yourself that your worth isn't tied to the chaos of the outside world. It's rooted in the quiet strength you carry within. The more you practice these habits, the more you'll find that inner peace isn't something you need to chase. It's something you already have, waiting to be uncovered. Inner peace isn't about perfection or absence of struggle. It's about finding a steady, unshakable center even when life feels uncertain. When you cultivate this kind of tranquility, you're not just affirming your worth, you're reclaiming it one quiet moment at a time. And in that stillness, you'll discover a sense of value that no amount of external validation can ever match. Approval is fleeting, but self-respect is lasting. This is a truth the Stoics held close, reminding us that seeking validation from others is like chasing the wind. It's unpredictable, unreliable, and ultimately out of our control. Seneca, the great Stoic philosopher, once wrote, "If you wish to be loved, love." His words cut to the heart of the matter. The more we chase approval, the further we drift from our own sense of worth. True fulfillment comes not from the applause of others, but from the quiet confidence of knowing we've acted with integrity and self-respect. Consider the story of a young artist who spent years trying to fit into the mold of what she thought others wanted her to be. She painted what she believed would sell, created what she thought would earn praise, and all the while she felt hollow. It wasn't until she stopped seeking approval and started creating from her heart that she truly found her voice. Her work became raw, authentic, and deeply personal, and ironically, it was then that others began to connect with it on a profound level. By letting go of the need for external validation, she discovered something far more valuable, the freedom to be herself. So, how can you release the need for others' approval? Start by asking yourself, whose opinion am I seeking and why? Is it your boss, your peers, or even strangers on social media? The Stoics taught that the opinions of others are like leaves in the wind. They shift and change, often without reason. Your worth, on the other hand, is rooted in something far more solid: your values, your actions, and your ability to live authentically. When you stop looking outward for validation and start looking inward for self-respect, you'll find a sense of freedom that no amount of approval can match. Think of it this way: every time you seek approval, you're handing someone else the power to define your worth. But when you let go of that need, you reclaim that power for yourself. You become the author of your own story, the judge of your own actions, and the source of your own validation. It's not about ignoring feedback or becoming indifferent to others. It's about recognizing that their approval isn't necessary for you to feel whole. The next time you catch yourself worrying about what others think, pause and ask, does this align with my values? Does this reflect who I truly am? If the answer is yes, then stand firm. If it's no, let it go. your self-respect is worth far more than fleeting approval. And when you live from that place of inner confidence, you'll find that the opinions of others lose their grip, leaving you free to live a life that's authentically, unapologetically your own. How often do you pause to ask yourself, what did I learn about myself today? It's a simple question, but one that can unlock profound insights if we take the time to answer it. The Stoics were firm believers in the power of daily reflection, a practice they saw as essential for cultivating self-awareness and deepening our sense of worth. Epictetus, one of the most influential Stoic teachers, put it this way: first learn the meaning of what you say and then speak. In other words, before we can truly understand our place in the world, we must first understand ourselves. And that begins with taking a few moments each day to look inward. Imagine someone who feels constantly overlooked at work, their efforts going unnoticed by their peers and superiors. Frustrated and disheartened, they decide to start a daily reflection practice. Each evening, they set aside 10 minutes to ask themselves a few simple questions. What did I do well today? Where could I have done better? What did I learn about myself in the process? At first, the answers feel surface level, but over time, something shifts. They begin to notice patterns, strengths they hadn't recognized, habits they could improve, and moments where they acted in alignment with their values. This daily habit of reflection isn't just about self-improvement, it's about self-discovery. It's a way to affirm your worth, not through the eyes of others, but through your own growing awareness of who you are and what you stand for. So, how can you make daily reflection a part of your life? Start small. Each night, take just 5 minutes to reflect on your day. Ask yourself, what went well? What challenged me? What did I learn about myself? These questions aren't meant to judge or criticize, they're tools for growth, helping you see yourself more clearly and act with greater intention. The Stoics believed that self-awareness is the foundation of a meaningful life. When you take the time to reflect, you're not just reviewing your day, you're deepening your understanding of your own worth. Think about it. What's one moment from today that you can reflect on to better understand yourself? Maybe it's a conversation where you showed patience, or a decision where you stood by your principles. Perhaps it's a mistake that taught you something valuable. Whatever it is, take a moment to sit with it. Reflect on what it reveals about your values, your strengths, and the person you're becoming. When you make this a daily habit, you'll find that your sense of worth grows not from external validation, but from the quiet confidence that comes from truly knowing yourself. Tonight, before you close your eyes, ask yourself, what can I reflect on to deepen my self-worth? It doesn't have to be grand or dramatic. It could be as simple as a kind word you offered, a challenge you faced, or a moment where you chose courage over comfort. When you take the time to reflect, you're not just reviewing your day, you're affirming your value, one small, meaningful insight at a time. Change is the only constant. It's a truth as old as time, yet one we often resist with all our might. The Stoics, however, saw change not as something to fear, but as an essential, natural part of life, a force that shapes us, challenges us, and ultimately helps us grow. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, put it this way: the universe is change, our life is what our thoughts make it. In other words, change isn't just happening around us, it's happening through us. And when we learn to embrace it rather than fight it, we unlock a deeper, more unshakable sense of self-worth. Imagine a musician who had built her entire career around a single instrument, pouring years of passion and practice into mastering it. Then, unexpectedly, an injury made it impossible for her to play the way she once did. At first, she felt lost, as if a part of her identity had been stripped away. But instead of clinging to what was, she chose to adapt. She began exploring new instruments, new ways of creating music, and even new genres she had never considered before. Over time, what initially felt like a devastating loss transformed into an opportunity for reinvention. By embracing change, she discovered not just new skills, but a deeper sense of her own resilience and creativity. This is the power of accepting impermanence. It frees us to evolve, to grow, and to find value in the unexpected. So, how can you begin to embrace change as a natural part of life? Start by shifting your perspective. Instead of seeing change as a threat, see it as an opportunity, a chance to learn, to adapt, and to discover new strengths within yourself. The Stoics believed that everything in life is temporary, from our successes to our struggles. By accepting this truth, we can stop clinging to what's familiar and start welcoming the possibilities that change brings. Think about it. What's one change you're currently facing? Whether it's a shift in your career, a new stage in life, or even a change in your relationships, ask yourself, how can I use this as an opportunity to grow? Maybe it's a chance to develop new skills, to reassess your priorities, or to find a different way of approaching a challenge. The more you lean into change, the more you'll see it not as something to fear, but as a natural, even necessary part of your journey. The Stoics called this amor fati, the love of fate. It's the practice of embracing everything life throws at us, not because it's easy, but because it's how we grow. When you stop resisting change and start seeing it as a teacher, you'll find that your sense of worth isn't tied to staying the same. It's tied to your ability to adapt, to learn, and to thrive in the face of uncertainty. So, as you move through your day, take a moment to reflect. What's one change you can embrace today? It doesn't have to be dramatic or life-altering. It could be as simple as trying a new approach to a problem or letting go of an old habit that no longer serves you. When you open yourself to change, you're not just adapting, you're affirming your ability to grow, to evolve, and to find value in every stage of your journey. And that, more than anything, is the essence of unshakable self-worth. How do you want to be remembered? It's a question that cuts to the core of what it means to live a meaningful life. The Stoics believed that our legacy wasn't just about what we achieved or accumulated, but about the kind of person we became and the impact we left on the world. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. Life is long enough, and a sufficiently generous amount has been given to us for the highest achievements if it were all well invested." In other words, a life well lived isn't measured by its length, but by its depth, by the purpose we infuse into every moment and the legacy we leave behind. Think about the story of a teacher in a small, rural community. She didn't have fame or fortune, but she poured her heart into her students, nurturing their curiosity and inspiring them to dream big. Decades later, many of those students went on to achieve incredible things, often crediting her as the spark that set them on their path. Her legacy wasn't built on grand gestures or public recognition. It was built on the quiet, consistent impact she had on the lives of others. This is the Stoic approach to legacy. It's not about being remembered by the masses, but about making a difference in the lives of those you touch. It's about living in such a way that your presence leaves the world a little better than you found it. So, what legacy do you want to create to affirm your worth? It doesn't have to be monumental or world-changing. It could be as simple as being a source of kindness and support for your family, or leaving your community stronger than you found it. Maybe it's using your skills to help others or standing up for what you believe in, even when it's hard. The Stoics taught that our legacy is shaped not by what we take from the world, but by what we give to it. And when we focus on that kind of contribution, we find a sense of worth that's rooted in something far deeper than external validation. Here's a challenge for you. Take a moment to reflect on the legacy you want to leave. What values do you want to embody? How do you want to be remembered by the people whose lives you touch? When you start living with that purpose in mind, you'll find that your sense of worth isn't tied to fleeting achievements or the opinions of others. It's tied to the lasting impact you create. And that, more than anything, is the foundation of a life well lived. Humility is the foundation of true self-worth. It might sound counterintuitive, after all. Doesn't valuing yourself mean standing tall and being confident? But the Stoics saw humility differently. For them, humility wasn't about diminishing yourself or shrinking in the face of others. It was about recognizing your place in the grand scheme of things, understanding that you are part of something much larger than yourself. Epictetus, one of the most insightful Stoic teachers, put it this way: "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." In other words, humility opens the door to growth, to learning, and ultimately, to a deeper sense of worth that isn't tied to ego or external validation. Consider the story of a young leader who rose quickly in their career, fueled by ambition and a desire to prove themselves. At first, their confidence seemed unshakable, but over time they began to feel the weight of their own expectations. They realized that their need to be seen as the best was actually holding them back. It created a barrier between them and their team, and it made every setback feel like a personal failure. Then they made a deliberate choice to practice humility. They started listening more, admitting when they didn't have all the answers, and valuing the contributions of others. This shift didn't weaken their leadership, it strengthened it. By embracing humility, they became more approachable, more adaptable, and ultimately more effective. Their sense of worth didn't come from being the smartest person in the room. It came from being part of a team working towards something greater than themselves. So, how can you practice humility to deepen your sense of worth? Start by asking yourself, where can I let go of the need to be right, to be perfect, or to be seen as superior? Maybe it's in a conversation where you listen more than you speak, or in a project where you give credit to others for their contributions. Humility isn't about putting yourself down, it's about lifting others up, recognizing that your worth isn't diminished by acknowledging the strengths of those around you. When you approach life with this mindset, you'll find that your sense of value grows not from comparison or competition, but from connection and contribution. Think of humility as a mirror that reflects your true self, free from the distortions of ego or pride. It allows you to see yourself clearly, to acknowledge your strengths without arrogance and your weaknesses without shame. The Stoics believed that humility was a gateway to wisdom, to self-awareness, and ultimately to a deeper, more enduring sense of worth. When you practice humility, you're not just affirming your value, you're creating space for growth, for learning, and for a life that's grounded in something far greater than yourself. And in that space, you'll find a quiet, unshakable confidence that no amount of external validation can match. Try this today. Look for one opportunity to practice humility. It could be as simple as saying, "I don't know, but I'd like to learn," or as profound as stepping back to let someone else shine. Notice how it feels to let go of the need to prove yourself and instead focus on being present, open, and connected. That feeling, that quiet strength, is your worth asserting itself, not through ego, but through humility. And that, more than anything, is the foundation of a life lived with purpose and peace. What simple things bring you joy? It's a question we don't ask ourselves often enough, especially in a world that constantly pushes us to chase more success, more possessions, more recognition. But the Stoics had a different perspective. They believed that true contentment and ultimately a deeper sense of self-worth could be found not in the pursuit of grandeur, but in the quiet, simple moments of life. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, captured this beautifully when he said, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." For the Stoics, joy wasn't something to be found in external achievements or material wealth. It was a mindset, a way of seeing the world that allowed them to find beauty and meaning in the ordinary. Take the story of a man who spent decades climbing the corporate ladder, always chasing the next promotion, the next milestone. He had everything society tells us we should want: a high-paying job, a big house, all the trappings of success. But despite it all, he felt empty. One day, he made a radical decision. He left his high-stress job, moved to a smaller home, and began focusing on the simple things, spending time with his family, tending to a small garden, and taking long walks in nature. At first, the shift felt uncomfortable, even risky, but over time, something remarkable happened. He began to feel a sense of peace and fulfillment he hadn't known in years. By embracing simplicity, he discovered that his worth wasn't tied to his job title or his bank account. It was rooted in the quiet, everyday moments that brought him genuine joy. So, how can you find joy in simplicity? Start by reflecting on the small, ordinary things that bring you a sense of contentment. Maybe it's the warmth of a morning cup of coffee, the sound of birdsong outside your window, or the comfort of a good book. The Stoics believed that by focusing on these simple pleasures, we can cultivate a sense of gratitude and fulfillment that no amount of external validation can match. It's not about rejecting ambition or ignoring your goals. It's about finding balance, about recognizing that joy doesn't have to be complicated or hard to find. Sometimes it's right in front of us, waiting to be noticed. Think about it. What's one simple thing that brings you joy today? It doesn't have to be grand or dramatic. It could be as small as the feel of sunlight on your skin or the satisfaction of completing a task well. When you take the time to notice and appreciate these moments, you're not just finding joy, you're affirming your worth, not through external achievements, but through the quiet, everyday acts of living. The Stoics called this ataraxia, a state of inner peace that comes from accepting and appreciating life as it is, without the need for more. Here's a challenge for you today. Find one simple thing that brings you joy and take a moment to fully appreciate it. It might be a conversation with a loved one, the taste of a favorite meal, or even the silence of a peaceful evening. When you do, you'll find that joy isn't something you need to chase or earn. It's already here, woven into the fabric of your daily life. And in that realization, you'll discover a quiet, unshakable sense of worth that no amount of external validation can ever match. As we come to the end of this journey through 24 Stoic strategies, one truth stands out above all. Your value doesn't come from the world's applause or the recognition of others, it comes from within. From focusing on what you can control to embracing discomfort, from practicing gratitude to finding joy in simplicity, each of these strategies is a reminder that self-worth is a practice, not a destination. It's something you cultivate daily through the choices you make, the virtues you embody, and the way you choose to see yourself. The Stoics taught us that true fulfillment isn't found in external validation, but in the quiet confidence of knowing you've lived in alignment with your deepest values. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, left us with a powerful insight. Regard yourself with respect, for you are your own longest commitment. These words capture the essence of what we've explored here. Self-respect isn't something you earn from others, it's something you build through your actions, your integrity, and your commitment to living authentically. Whether it's through embracing solitude, practicing humility, or finding meaning in the present moment, each strategy is a step toward affirming your worth, not because someone else says so, but because you know it to be true. So, as we wrap up, take a moment to reflect. Which of these strategies resonates most with you? Is it the idea of focusing on what you can control, or perhaps the practice of daily reflection? Maybe it's the reminder to find joy in simplicity or the courage to embrace change. Whatever it is, consider how you can bring it into your life, not as a one-time effort, but as an ongoing practice. Self-worth isn't something you achieve and then forget. It's a lifelong journey, one that requires intention, effort, and above all, self-respect. Now it's your turn. Share in the comments below which strategy spoke to you the most and how you plan to apply it. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe for more insights on living a Stoic life, one that's grounded in purpose, resilience, and unshakable self-worth. Because here's the thing, your value isn't up for debate. It's already within you, waiting to be acknowledged. All you have to do is see it, own it, and let it guide you forward.